If you're on Xiaohongshu, you might saw some posts saying that Americans are not welcome here and that they should go back. These opinions are actually not coming from Chinese nationalists or any Chinese people being xenophobic. People who are from China have never been abroad usually welcome Americans. But someone who studied abroad like me are telling Americans to go back. I'll explain why. When you see Americans flooding into Xiaohongshu, they find out that Chinese people are so welcoming and it was flowers and hugs and cheers, even if they don't speak Chinese at all. But what Chinese international student experienced abroad was the complete opposite. When we just got here in North America, when we still cannot speak English at all, people treat us with absolutely no respect. When you don't speak the language, Americans just treat us in whatever the way they want because we cannot fight back and they bully us. I got to know how mean Americans can be when I pass the border. I see people with European passport passing through the custom within 1 minute. The guy who was checking the passport barely questioned them anything. But when the border see my Chinese passport, they have to interrogate me like a criminal for at least 10 minutes. That happened every time when I pass through the US border. Even if I'm an international student who is purely contributing to the US GDP, and now I'm a senior in the US college, paying several times more than the local students, with all clear records, they still question my intention coming to the United States in the 4th year. Not to mention that the border treats us with no respect at all, too. And during this past 4 years, I've been verbally discriminated against. People has called me racial slurs, threatened to beat me up on the streets, push me in the bakery, and not to mention all the microaggressions coming from my classmates and professors just because I'm a Chinese student. And my other fellow Chinese students also being pushed in the CTA and being spat at by a random person, being called a bitch inside of US college by another American student. And suddenly, I see all those Americans who doesn't speak our language at all just suddenly flooded into Xiaohongshu and everybody is welcoming them. And I thought to myself, how about all the discriminations and sufferings and pains and mental breakdown and exclusions I suffer in the States? Why don't I receive the same treatment in the United States? If people treat me like dirt in the US, what makes those Americans deserve such welcoming treatment from Chinese people? When I was in Chinese public school, we were never taught to hate Americans. And let me tell you, Chinese propaganda has never taught Chinese people to hate Americans. But the American propaganda is constantly telling Americans that Chinese people hate them and trying to make Americans believe that we hate them. But we don't, as you guys can see now. And that's why Chinese international students on Xiaohongshu are telling you guys to go back to your app, because we're jealous of your treatment, because we're not equal, because of the white supremacy and Eurocentric mindsets. Can you guys see the extreme power imbalance that's happening here? This is extremely unfair for us. As Chinese people who's living abroad for so many years, we live in this so-called immigrant country, suffering all kinds of discriminations and stereotypes, and we have to swallow the bitterness and go on with our lives. This is so unfair.